Great. Hi, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys, with Justin and Anthony. It's our first LinkedIn Live US edition, US time zone, although it's also compatible with Europe. It's the end of the working day, midday in New York, right? Early afternoon. And Justin, for you, it's late morning, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, great. We found the compatible time slot. So it's a pleasure to be here with you. And in the next 15 to 20 minutes, we will discuss how to step up your personal brand building as an executive in a big corporate. Why should you care? And what are the practical steps that one can take every single day or every week, commit, and how to execute on them, and why is it important? And I think there are no better guests for that than Justin Nassiri, the founder and CEO of Executive Presence, and Anthony Onesto, who is the author of AI and HR newsletter, 50 Top HR. On that, you have to expand now. And advisor to many HR tech startups and an expert in the field. So over to you guys. Maybe let's start with Anthony and do a quick round of intros. And then, I'll throw some questions on you.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I love it. Thank you for having me. Good to meet everyone today. As Katya said, my name is Anthony Onesto. I am a chief people officer at a company called Suzy. We are in the market research consumer insight space, been here for 7 years. Most of my career has been in startups, taking them from 0 to 1, fast growth. I like to say I create organization out of chaos. I build the structures for growth. And on this topic specifically, I have coached so many executives, so many employees that have want to create a brand both internally and externally, and just talk about the importance of these things. And outside of all the CPO work that I do, I also am a tech advisor to a lot of work tech companies. I wrote a book about Gen Z. I have a newsletter on AI. So do a lot of things to make sure my portfolio is consistently robust for branding, for pleasure, for all sorts of things. So good to be here. I'm excited to talk about this topic.
Amazing. Follow your curiosity and make a job out of it. Which was what Justin did as well, right?
Yeah, I'm Justin Nassiri. I'm based in Denver, Colorado. I actually started out in the Navy on submarines, got out, went to business school at Stanford, and have been doing startups since then. I started Executive Presence 3 years ago, and since then we've helped over 250 CEOs, 5 of publicly traded companies build executive presence on LinkedIn. Really big fan of LinkedIn. I think it's the single place where every single stakeholder is at. Employees, customers, investors, acquirers, everyone is there. And so it's a very efficient channel for executives. So very excited to be with you here today, Katya.
Yeah, thanks for making this time. So first question, let's dive into it. So we helped executives and even like CEOs of publicly listed companies, such as like very, very big stakes, and the whole PR departments behind these guys, right, or women. Well, what do you start with? Like, what are the very first steps? Like, okay, let's, like people probably have a LinkedIn profile, but sometimes they did not pay too much attention and love to it, right? So whoever wants to go first, what are the first basics that you look into and consult these people on? What do you recommend them to get right?
Happy to take a stab.
Before they start creating content. Yeah.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah, I probably talk to, I don't know, 600 CEOs a year. And just based on those observations, most of them post probably 2 to 4 times a year. When they do post, it tends to be just about the company and a major milestone, or they're reposting content from the company page. So the first thing that I want to educate them on is you can't just talk about your company. I think that LinkedIn is about thought leadership. And that means whatever your domain of expertise is, your job is to educate, not sell. And so I always say, look, 80% of your content should be educational in nature. And then 20% of the time, if you do want to promote your company, that's great. but we don't want you just to be a mouthpiece for propaganda. People are going to tune you out if all you do is share articles from your company or promote webinars or whatever else you're doing. This is much more about being a subject matter expert and imparting education without really even mentioning your company. That's the first one. The second one that I would say is it's all about original content. Sharing an article, sharing a link, it's just not going to have an impact. But if you create content specifically for LinkedIn, whether it's a text post, a video, a carousel, it's going to get a lot more exposure. And then the last one is, even though they're only doing 2 to 4 posts per year, if they want visibility and to give their company visibility, they're going to need to be posting 1 to 5 times per week. It's an insane amount of volume when you're coming to just a few times a year. But if they're serious about helping build credibility and awareness for their company, they have to be consistent in that 1 to 5 times per week. I'd love to hear, Anthony, what you have to say, though, too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, double click on all of those, right? Double point or thumbs up on what Justin said. I mean, it applies not only for CEOs, for all. And when I think of this, I think of it across the gamut of C-level executives and even employees. And Justin's spot on. I mean, the first and foremost, especially, and I'm sure Justin does this with his clients, is really also taking some self-reflection. I think that's a key factor, right? Conducting a personal audit and understanding, like, who are you? What is it that you think, and what's your point of view? Are you, do you drive a lot of your opinions, or at least your point of views, through data? Is it a contrarian point of view? Whatever it is, do a little bit of self-reflection and understanding about your own personal audit. What is your, and it's great what Justin is talking about, because when you do that audit, if you aren't frequently on the platform, or you're just reposting webinars and company information and company announcements, that's a clear indication that you really need to start thinking about what your personal brand is. Also, seek feedback. One of the things, and whether it's an expert like Justin or even from your network, get an idea. Like, even, I think Scott Galloway, who's one of the hosts of the Pivot podcast, talks about this Swiss Army knife of advisors that everybody should have. The Swiss Army knife of advisors is not the same. Like, I have advisors, none of them are HR people, because I want different perspectives, and they're not all C-level executives. It could be, a staff employee, whatever it is. You're getting the perspective. Hey, what do you think about my profile? What is it? Because we all can look at our profiles and go, this is wonderful. Again, I think Justin comes in with probably a great perspective. Like, this is what I see, what works. And then identify, your strengths, your weaknesses. If you're not data focused, maybe it's more about storytelling. If you're data focused, it's really bringing the research and the rigor around data and understanding what your unique value is. And I think that's exactly what Justin was getting at. What is your unique value? What are you bringing to the table? And I follow Kieran Schneider, who's a former CEO and founder of Textio. And she has this data storing blog, and she talks about your unique value. Tell me a story that either resonates with a belief I already have and provides different information on that. Because that's what people seek. They want to seek sort of their own confirmation. Or tell me something I didn't know already. And those two elements, especially on LinkedIn, are really critical versus pushing and pushing information that's already out there, or is a POV that's already well known or well established.
I love that, Anthony. One thing I'll add is I really like your thought of having those advisors, the Swiss Army advisors, giving you thoughts on what you should talk about to kind of take it downstream. One of the best things about LinkedIn is you're getting a lot of data and feedback. And so as you start to talk, if you are posting consistently on topic A and no one is engaging with it, it's pretty clear feedback that the market doesn't value your expertise there. That's okay. You can shift to something else. So I love LinkedIn because you're getting this discrete data and feedback, almost like a stand-up comedian of, are you getting laughs? If not, you got to mix up your material.
How do you make sure those executives find time and headspace and get approvals from all the internal stakeholders to do that 5 times per week? That's a lot. It sounds like a full-time job. Yeah.
I try to do this, and I'd love to hear what Justin says after this. But for me, it's you're only going to prioritize the things you find important. So I think what you have to do first and foremost is identify how this is, you find out what the long and short term priorities are of that individual, right? So if you're a CEO, you are primarily responsible for driving growth and making sure a company is profitable, right? And in some cases, more growth, more profitability, whatever it is, those are your main goals and what you're being judged by your board. So what you need to do is understand how this is going to impact one of two of those business results, right? And most likely it'll drive growth and awareness of your brand and the brand of your organization, which is ultimately what you're trying to accomplish. I want people to understand who my brand is if it's not a well-known brand, and then ultimately buy whatever that brand is selling. So when you make that connection, and I'm sure Justin has a ton of data on that connection specifically, it's easy to then say, okay, CEO, you're going to prioritize this, right? 4 or 5 posts a week correlate to these things. And now they're going to, it's actually of impact. And I will say our CEO here, who's a brand expert on these things, Matt Britton, constantly pushes stuff out, has his own podcast because he knows that these things are driving brand value and are connected to revenue, why he prioritizes these things. And that goes for anyone. So that's a key element of this. That's how you get now internal stakeholders. Again, first and foremost, you're the CEO. You're going to drive the strategy. If you're at the CEO level, if you're at different levels, you're going to have to need other stakeholders to get involved. But internal comms, again, the goal is to increase revenue. So bring them in as a partner early on to be like, this is what my short and long-term goals are for doing this thing. This is why I'm going to be posting. This is what I'm thinking about. Now you have to remember internal comms has 2 responsibilities. One, drive growth and those business metrics, right? That's number 1. Number 2, mitigate risk, right? They don't want you to say something stupid. So they're going to be approaching it from both of those angles. And I think it's always good to get their buy-in and get their review and their help as soon as possible. Justin, I'd love your thoughts.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's like Simon Sinek, start with why. And I think that what has been most encouraging to me of all the CEOs that we've worked with, very rarely do people want to do this. They don't want the attention. And the reason they're doing it is they realize it's going to help their team, their employees, their company, their investors. And so that's why they're doing this. And so the very first thing I always ask them is like, hey, if we could pack an auditorium with 10,000 people to hear you give a keynote speech right now, what do you want to get out of that? Are you looking to hire people? Are you looking to raise money? Are you looking to get customers? Usually it's several of those. And like Anthony said, that's what we keep on going back to, because I don't think, especially in the early stages for anyone, it's not comfortable putting yourself out there. It's not comfortable putting an idea out into the world that you think is great and having crickets and having nothing respond to it. It takes courage. It takes tenacity. It takes a lot of stamina to show up every single day. And some days things fall flat, but that's part of the process. So like Anthony said, having that deeper reason of who are you helping, your family, your employees, your team, all of these people, that is what keeps people going, especially in those early stages as they're developing an audience and figuring out what to talk about.
Exactly. And I just want to add another thing here, and it's going to sound very cliche, but a lot of people don't. Michael Jordan talked about the fact that, yeah, I missed a whole bunch of shots, but I definitely missed the shots I never took. So you're definitely not going to be get the brand recognition. You're not going to be pushing stuff out if you don't push stuff out there. So there are going to be times where you do miss. And it's like, and I will tell you, I've done this before where I'm like, wow, this is the most brilliant thing I've ever written. And I would get 0 hearts, 0 likes, 0 interactions. And I would just be like, what happened there? I thought this was, and then I would do something that is so basic and I would get so many likes. And I'm like, okay, there's my ICP, right? My ideal customer profile as I'm thinking of this. Now I have to go into their mindset and figure out what is it that I want to deliver the message to them that resonates most. So like Justin said, it's going to be a game of hits and misses, and then doubling down on the things that absolutely work and get rid of the things that don't work.
Yeah, iteration. That I was going also to ask a controversial question. Have you seen examples where it didn't work at all, like despite showing up every single week? Like we don't have to name name the names or like specific companies, but just to like zoom out and in like an abstract meanings of terms, there. I mean, LinkedIn, like 1 billion people are on LinkedIn. So it's 1/8 of the world population. So as you guys said in the very beginning, if you're not present on this platform as a CEO, as an executive, like leading a department, or as a founder, you're clearly missing out. And right now, so many people are trying to tackle LinkedIn as a growth channel for like generating more leads, getting more customers, building out an employer brand, or just positioning yourself so you're visible, so you get that promotion faster, or you can change jobs easier because everyone knows you. But like some people succeed and go from 0 to like 100,000 followers in a few months. Others struggle. What are maybe like in your experience, what have you seen like trying and iterating and it didn't work out, and why? If
I'll
something
say
comes to
three
your mind.
things.
Yeah.
First is like relevance matters here, right? If I'm working with the CEO of a plastics company, I'm not trying to get every human on the planet to engage with him. I'm trying to get his target audience in. And so one thing in the era of Joe Rogan, we want to break this thought that you're going to have hundreds of millions of followers. Most of us, that's not important. We want a really precise audience. So that matters. Second, contextualized within someone's number of followers, I have not seen it fail if the person has empathy. And by that, I mean if they understand what their audience wants to learn about and they're willing to listen to that and shift and find ways to help them. If they're generous and empathetic, it will work. It might take a while to meander and find that sweet spot. But if, where it wouldn't work is if you're just talking about X and no one values your insights on X. So you have to have some sense of iteration here. And then third one, it's a little bit off topic, but I would say that there's no one responding, and then there's a lot of hate, which doesn't happen a lot on LinkedIn. I like to say it's bumper bowling for social media, but I would say that across our clients, I've seen 4 times where a post went viral in a negative way. And what we saw was that they got a tremendous amount of negative comments, but almost actually in every single one of those 4 cases, it was their highest growth of followers. And what we found was, okay, you really ruffled some feathers by taking a strong position, and there was a lot of vocal hate. But guess what? People might have not have been commenting on it. You got a lot of followers who are like, that, I agree with that. So even in the worst case scenario, if you're willing to tolerate the negative spotlight, you're actually going to attract more people from our observations there. But I'd love to hear, Anthony, your thoughts on it too.
Yeah, Justin's. I think because you have a professional identity on LinkedIn, and now there's some verification pieces that it does remove. It's almost as friendly as in person. I think everything else has become too toxic and easy for folks to just follow people and post negative things. Not to say, I mean, females on LinkedIn are constantly being followed on LinkedIn, inappropriate comments. So it still exists, and LinkedIn needs to do a better job on all of that. And with AI, I can't imagine that it can't. But that said, where I've seen it fail, I mean, personally, I've put out stuff that didn't go viral in a negative way, just kind of just flopped, or it was too future forward thinking. I thought, oh, look, I'm going to pontificate about a future of AI and HR. And what I learned very quickly was we're not there yet. You're too far ahead. You're thinking too far ahead. And the profession and the folks that are looking to learn are really just starting at zero. And so bring it back to the basics, bring it back. There was, and I'm not going to name the name, but you'll probably know just by me explaining. So there was an AI, there was a really cool AI solution on LinkedIn that connected you to other people. You would there was a phone number, you would call it, you'd tell it all about you, and then it would connect you to, you say, listen, I'm interested in meeting more people in this industry,
No,
or
boarding AI. Yeah.
I'm not saying a word, but
Yeah.
it might be, it might sound like Lardy. No. And so it was incredible. I mean, what a fundamental story. I think it's a wonderful idea. I met the founders. They had an oopsie moment. And it wasn't just an oopsie moment. It was something where the community really pushed back on them for something. And I think it was a misogynistic comment. And they had to own it. They had to own it on social, and it probably impacted their brand a little bit. So there's a lot. Listen, the risk is absolutely there, but if you are a good human being, 9 times out of 10, you're going to push something out there, and you can be contrarian and not be controversial. You can be contrarian and have a different point of view. Just be a good person on these things. I think if you're going after trying to harm folks, not that they were at all, they just misspoke in a post and they got a lot of crap for it. And so there's definitely risks. Like none of this is super easy. This is why you hire someone like Justin to do these things and to help you out, because you want to eliminate that risk and get some of the positivity. And then on the flip side of that, maybe I'm getting ahead of the question. Sorry. Ask the next question. I was going to go into what works, but I'm sure that's a question coming.
I'll just say one other thing. What's been interesting is across so many different clients now, there are some days that are just off days on LinkedIn, and we'll see on Slack everyone being like, oh man, no one's post is doing well today. So don't overweight a single data point. There's some days where, something's going on in the news or people are distracted and they're not on LinkedIn. You kind of need a couple at-bats for each topic to rule it in or out.
I love that.
Yeah, let's go to the bank holidays, or like sometimes there are off days for algorithms. Like I agree. Let's go to the next one that you suggested. What works, right?
Yeah, too far ahead. Too far ahead. This is me.
Yeah.
No, and Justin probably will answer this better than I can because I'm sure he's seen it. What I've heard is. There's a couple of elements. I'm going to go super tactical. Video. What I heard is that LinkedIn is prioritizing video in their algorithm. And so what I've heard is doing video is now really pushing. It's prioritizing it in the algorithm. So you're seeing a lot of that stuff first. So we're going from 0 to 100 now, right? We're going from someone that doesn't post to now going right to video, which could be a huge leap for some individuals, right? The first step is maybe just posting on a post or adding some blog posts or starting a newsletter. I'm going all the way to the far end and saying, you know what, you should do video. It also might be the most authentic. It's probably the hardest, I think, especially if you're not used to LinkedIn and you're not used to writing on LinkedIn. You're not going to go straight to video. But what I've heard is what really works these days is video. Justin, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing.
It's interesting. There's a lot of qualitative observations. One is, if you go on mobile where it's prioritized, you see a lot of video. A lot of times it feels like more of the influencer approach of like, if you have 1 second, it just kind of feels often salesy to me, or maybe that's just what's in my feed. I have been doing a lot of experimentation with video, and actually my team sent me a message on Slack this morning, and we hired like a video crew to come out and do something super snazzy, and I've done some videos on this, and their takeaway was like, it doesn't make a difference if it's professional or if it's just self-made, and so do more of the self-made because it's easier. So that was interesting for me. The numbers are good. I think that the thing I'm trying to figure out, like Anthony said, I think video is great about relationship building. And so even if the views are not dramatically better than my typical text post, I'm kind of reading between the lines that there's something about seeing someone and hearing them and getting a feel for who they are. And we haven't found a way to quantify that, but I tend to agree with Anthony, especially as more content is getting churned out on the platform that's text-based. Video could be a differentiator. I'm not to the point where I'm going all in on it, but maybe once a week, every other week is a good rhythm.
Yeah. And what I've been doing, and again, I don't... Good.
I was going to say the patterns. Yeah, just a quick one. The patterns that we are noticing with our users, like the best thing to do is to alternate between text and image, carousel, with text as well, and video. Add like well-structured text posts. So yeah, it's better to do like 3 or 4 and go for different formats. That's what.
Yeah, and I love
do on Content Radar. Yeah.
working with Content Radar on the carousel piece, because that was one that's just very difficult to, in Canva and doing other things. It's super easy to do via Content Radar, and it's another avenue of visual content, which I think is important. What I've been able to do, and I don't know if it's successful or not, the jury is still out, is I do start with text, right? I start with a blog post, and then I take the blog post and I do post it on LinkedIn, text only, with some insights. And then I've been using Content Radar to add a carousel. And then I go into video talking about, now not fully, and I actually got this again from one of my person I really like is Scott Galloway, because he does interesting things. He has the podcast, obviously, but he also has a blog post, No Mercy, No Malice, that he does, right? He starts with writing, and then he does he has George Hahn voice over it for a podcast, and so he just does a different text, and I'm like, that's a really cool idea. So, but I don't take my literal post and just video it. I just highlight it. I have 10 or 20-second video that highlights it, and I also put the link in there, and I'm trying to see if that video algorithm gets the link exposed a lot more. Maybe that's a way of doing it. But I start always with the writing form first. That's the first thing I've always start with.
Yeah, by the way, something else we are working on is a LinkedIn coaching feature. If you're interested, I can let us know. We can have a chat. Like, my co-founder has a little prototype made already to like spill out the recommendation. Like, should I go for video, or is this working? What is like the content from all my previous months and efforts that I should be doubling down on? I mean, sometimes and analyze, but like, we're trying to automate that. So let's see.
Yeah,
it's a promising one. Yeah.
Cool.
Justin, you had a comment on.
I know we're almost at time, so maybe just one parting thought is I feel like LinkedIn is a very ephemeral media. It's a post is going to get viewed for 18 hours, right? Most posts are not seen. So I know that Anthony and I and Katya, we talked about a lot of things for LinkedIn. I hope that doesn't inhibit people from trying things out, and you can try and learn. I think it's very, very apt for rapid iteration. And so don't wait to try to get it perfect. Don't delay things to try to get it on video instead of text. I think it's more important to put something out there and learn from it and go. So use iteration. Don't, wait till the end and try to find the perfect thing to say to try. Put yourself out there today and learn and repeat.
Yeah, and if you need an inspiration, then join our LinkedIn Lives to learn from the experts, or check out Content Radar for our LinkedIn post ideation features and content repurposing, if you just want to take existing content and turn them into posts matching your tone of voice. And also to coordinate, like if you're writing on behalf of someone, for that we have pretty cool stuff as well for like teams and for agencies and ghostwriters. It's been a pleasure chatting to you guys. And so we'll repurpose this into small bite-sized video bits and try pushing them out on LinkedIn and see how the engagement goes. So stay tuned for that, and have a successful week.
Thank you, Katya. Thank you.